All right, welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us right here on SA Today. We've been looking at the markets and how have they been tracking so far. And of course, we'll be speaking to Maudi Lentsoane, who is Managing Director of Lehumo Investments, to try and tell us how the markets have been performing. But of course, for the consumers, especially motorists, the price of petrol and diesel will be going down from midnight at the cost of, as the cost of fuel decreases. And both grades of petrol will decrease by 1.74 cents per litre, and diesel will go down by 1.61 cents a litre. Of course, it's good news for the consumers there, but also we heard the news that is not really pleasing for the year of the motor industry, where the cars that have been sold so far are lesser than expected because of the coronavirus that has actually brought the industry to a standstill. And of course, we've been looking at how the oil market has been in as far as the trajectory in an upward trend is concerned, and of course gold being stable and platinum as well holding its ground. Thank you very much for coming through, Maudi, and good afternoon.
Thanks for having me, Colin, and good evening, good afternoon to your viewers.
Right. So firstly, one can imagine how tough is it for traders, especially when you have to click your mouse when you're looking at the screen. The markets have been down, looking at the stocks across the board. How are you guys coping in terms of making choices?
Yeah, it has been a very difficult period. I think for traders, those that are buying and selling, day traders, as we call them, they're probably, enjoying this volatility, because I think for traders, they do love volatility. They want the market to go up and down. I think what is really, really confusing for especially investors that are buying more for long term, it's a lot of question marks about whether or not those companies that they're buying for longer term will still be there, when, post COVID-19. We've just seen another company, Comair, filing for business rescue. So there's a lot of uncertainty going forward within the property sector. There's also a lot of confusion. Some of those big land lots don't know where the rental is going to come from, particularly because their tenants are also under a lot of pressure. The likes of Adcom has also come through, file for business rescue. So there's so much uncertainty, Colin, that we are seeing, and as a result of this COVID-19, and I think it makes investing even a lot more difficult. But I think traders are probably loving it as they continue to see how they can navigate this volatility on a day-to-day basis.
So when you look at the motor industry and juxtaposing the good news of petrol decreases, one can imagine what this would imply for the projected unemployment post-lockdown and COVID-19, where some companies would not even come back to market activity after all this. What does this mean for this industry? Are we likely to see some, like the financials be impacted? Because consumers will then say, we cannot afford our bonds, we cannot afford to pay car installments, and we are not able to pay back our personal loans, and therefore the banks have to take over.
Colin, I think the coming months are going to be very, very sad. I mean, I think you're going to see a number of consumers defaulting on their mortgages. They're going to default on their car installments simply because they haven't got an income. Some of them, they have lost businesses that used to be profitable before COVID-19. Now they have got no income. They are locked down, and only now, some essential services sectors are returning. However, the damage is already so severe that some of them will not be able to save their businesses. I know some effort has been done from the government side to try and shield some of the impact. However, there are going to be losses. I mean, you've seen with the vehicle sales number that have come through, domestic sales numbers declined in the 97%, of exports as well, also declining quite heavily there. So these numbers are going to become a norm. We're going to see double digits drop in some of these numbers, even including our own GDP numbers are likely to come through within the double digits territory. So it's going to be a sad state of affairs in the coming months. We need to just, try and really just weather the storms, those that can. And I think there are a number of companies that will potentially be able to, survive. But I think the impact certainly going to be very negative for many sectors. So the consumers are going to be impacted. You'll talk about the petrol price drop. What does it mean when some of the sectors are not able to take advantage of that? What does it mean when your car is parked in your garage and you can't drive around? It really means nothing. You can't take advantage of this low petrol price environment, and simply because we are on a lockdown. And that's an unfortunate situation.
So it's going to be a double whammy, or shall one say, for the sake of this argument, triple whammy, where consumers are going to be impacted, companies are going to be impacted, as well as government. Where is the money going to come from if government had to reprioritize projects and budgets to try and combat COVID-19 through social security, making sure that there are food parcels? And for example, SARS having a 70 billion rand shortfall of revenue collection arising from tax deferrals, tax incentives, skills development levy, and the likes. So now, in terms of the circulation of money during a recession, how are we going to survive as a country?
Look, the facts are, I think the government is really running out of options. We came into this whole COVID-19 already on a very difficult position, on a back foot, if you like. And therefore, to try and navigate what they've already done is that they are reprioritizing, meaning they're taking money from, that they had allocated to other sectors and now moving it into a fight against the pandemic. And hopefully we get to win that, because I think a lot is dependent on how we deal with the virus. If we can, make sure that the virus doesn't spread quite aggressively, and we're able to contain that impact on the South Africans, I think we then stand a chance to rebuild the economy. The economy is going to be impacted. How long it's going to take, it's all dependent on how these measures that are implemented are able to work. I think the fact is we don't have enough money, and therefore there's also talks about going to the likes of IMF to try and borrow there to try and really come and fight this pandemic. We've got no options. We're already downgraded as well in terms of the cost of borrowing have already increased. So we are in a very predicament. We are in a serious. We're caught between the rock and a hard place, and it's very difficult situation to navigate. But I think the priority now is to contain the virus.
Yeah, well, given that you're containing the virus, and in the meantime, there's going to be a shortfall in revenue. One is looking at the business side of this. I mean, like 46% of businesses are closing, and of course, 36% reduced their workforce, and of course, 28% decreased their working hours. Things are not really looking good for the industry. But Maudi, we're going to have to leave it there as we've run out of time, and of course, we will take this further in our next engagement. We're going to take a break, and we'll